Phone check, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we got a copy.
Good, thank you.
I can hear you. All right, thank you. This is Chief Hyatt. I'm in now.
Good evening, Baltimore County, and thank you for joining us. I'm County Executive Johnny Olszewski, and welcome to our virtual budget town hall tonight. I appreciate all of those of you who are joining us from across Baltimore County this evening to hear from me and members of the Baltimore County Council and to share your thoughts, ideas, and concerns. I want to thank Anessa, who's behind me and joining us again tonight to provide interpretive services. She was with us last week for our COVID town hall and did a fantastic job there. I want to thank her for joining us again tonight. For WebEx viewers, when we turn to our slideshow later tonight, you can maximize your screen and get the full picture of those interpretive services. We will also be adding closed captioning to the entire presentation tonight after we record tonight's town hall. We held 4 in-person town hall meetings before the COVID-19 crisis required us to cancel the remaining 3. So I especially want to thank the council members from those 3 council districts, Council Chairwoman Bevins, Councilman Quirk, and Councilman Marks, for being here with us tonight. They will be providing brief updates specific to their districts shortly. I'd also like to acknowledge 2 of their colleagues who have joined tonight, Councilman Jones and Councilman Patoka, as well as Delegate Kathy Forbes and Senator Shelley Heddleman, who are also on the call tonight. When I ran for this office, I made a commitment to transparency, and since taking office, I've made every effort to live up to that commitment. That's why we're here virtually together this evening. Even a pandemic will not stop us in our efforts to hear about your priorities for the future. Unfortunately, the story I have tonight to tell is far different and less encouraging than the one I was telling just a few weeks ago at those in-person town hall meetings. But my commitment to connected and transparent government goes beyond just showing up. It also means telling you the truth. And that truth is that we're in uncharted territory. Our schools are closed, our businesses are shut down, and we have neighbors in every community who don't know where or when they'll get their next paycheck. And we don't know how long this new reality will go on. As we confront this new reality, I want to take a moment to especially call out and thank our first responders and other frontline workers. These are the people who are out there every day working hard to keep us safe, and we will continue to do everything we can to keep them safe. While we do not know how long we will feel the impact of this virus, what we do know is the steps we've taken in partnership with the state are necessary to limit the spread of COVID-19. By staying home, we are saving lives. Speaking of our outstanding employees, I'm glad to be joined tonight by a number of our department heads whose teams are actively engaged in responding to the coronavirus. They are Will Anderson, Director of Economic and Workforce Development, Dr. Gregory Branch, our Health Officer and Director of Health and Human Services, Police Chief Melissa Hyatt, Fire Chief Joanne Runn, and Rosalind Johnson, our Director of Recreation and Parks. They're here tonight to answer any questions you might have, and I appreciate them joining us. Before we talk briefly about the budget and open it up for community input, I wanted to share some of the actions we've taken in Baltimore County to date in response to the virus. I issued an executive order declaring a local state of emergency, and we closed our senior centers, libraries, and rec centers. We restricted public access to our county buildings. We joined the state in prohibiting gatherings of more than 10 people. We established a hotline for residents, and staff have responded to nearly 4,500 calls. I want to thank the BCPS school nurses who have been supporting that effort alongside our staff. We're providing meal and grocery distributions to help our residents who are suddenly facing food insecurity. We've suspended evictions and water shutoffs, and we've established an emergency fund which can accept outside contributions in partnership with the Baltimore Community Foundation in support of our ongoing efforts to respond to this evolving crisis. We've taken the right steps, and we're doing the things necessary to help our residents and our communities. And together, we'll get through this crisis. We're also going to face the aftermath together. Still, in a few short weeks, this crisis has drastically changed how we're thinking about our fiscal 21 budget. The fact is, we don't know exactly how extensive the impact of this crisis will be. But we know it will impact our revenues and our expenditures in the upcoming year. We know there will be tens of millions in direct COVID expenditures. We know we have already completed a revenue write-down that projects our local revenues dropping by tens of millions of dollars compared to pre-coronavirus. We know the longer this pandemic continues, those expenses will increase and those revenues will be further reduced. We're committed to doing all that we can to support individuals and businesses impacted by the virus, but we don't know exactly what a recovery will look like quite yet. For our budget planning, that means there isn't a lot of room for extras. In prior town halls and through an online priority tool, we heard from residents what they'd like to see. That included more funding for land preservation. We know there are communities that want turf fields, and we all want more transportation options, recreational opportunities, and resurfaced roads, among others. But before we can think about extras, we have to focus on the basics. Making sure our schools are resourced, keeping our neighborhoods safe, and supporting the county's workforce so that we can continue providing the essential services that residents expect and they deserve. The good news is we've already taken significant steps over the last year to increase transparency and accountability in county government. We created an Office of Ethics and Accountability. We launched BCStat, a data-driven performance management program. And our Office of Government Reform and Strategic Initiatives is conducting program reviews to help us operate more efficiently and effectively. These are important ways that will help keep our government running smoothly. And they're especially critical actions in these challenging times. The groundwork we've laid for a more accountable government will also help us find additional efficiencies, allowing us to have the resources to remain focused on the basics. Speaking of resources, I need to share an important reminder for us to fill out our census forms. It's a critical way to ensure that we have the funding we need, funding levels that will impact us for the next 10 years. Just 10 questions, a few minutes of your time. It's safe, easy, and will make a huge difference. In fact, filling out the census makes sure that we have the resources for our first responders, for healthcare, money for Head Start and special education teachers, environmental protection, and transportation planning. The results of the 2020 census will determine how hundreds of billions of dollars in federal funding flow into communities every year for the next decade. The future remains uncertain in many ways, but I do know this: Baltimore County will weather this storm. Yes, we will have to tighten our belts, and we will have to make some difficult decisions. But I remain optimistic that the steps we've taken to date and those we continue to take will allow us to remain focused on our priorities while we manage our way through this crisis together. Before I open the lines for questions and input, I wanted to give Council members Bevins, Quirk, and Marks an opportunity to share their thoughts on the budget process and provide any district updates they may have. I want to thank the entire Council for their partnership and leadership in this very difficult time. They have been incredible partners as we've navigated the early days of this COVID response, and they will continue to be partners in the days ahead. With that, I'll open the floor up first to Council Chair Kathy Bevins.
For me to serve the last 9 years and represent the 6th District. We have worked together on many quality of life issues, actually over 7,500 according to my tracking system. Together, we have worked to preserve land, build new elementary school, another elementary school and middle school have been planned for the 6th District and will also be shared by the 5th District. All 6th District schools have been air conditioned. We have invested in redevelopment and new development in the White Marsh and Middle River areas, creating more than 7,000 jobs. We have fully vested in public safety and education as well. I advocated last year to secure funding to bring 2 new PAL centers to the district. Now McCormick Elementary and Victory Villa have been funded for centers. I worked with the state legislators and the county executive to secure funding for the first professional skate park as well in the Rosedale area. Also, whether it's been receiving turf fields at Overley or water relining in some of our older established neighborhoods or road resurfacing, we're getting it done. And with that being said, we have much more to do, but we are now facing very uncertain times. However, I remain hopeful and I look forward to working with the citizens of the 6th District and the county executive and continue to bring home the dollars for quality projects. Thank you, county executive, and to all that are listening.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Councilman Quirk.
Good evening. First of all, sorry we couldn't do this in person, but obviously with the social distancing that we all are practicing, we're all in Baltimore County are doing what we're asking each of you to do, which is just be careful and try to help flatten this curve. But again, I'm sorry we couldn't obviously do this in person. Your issues and your concerns are very important to us, and so if you don't feel you have a chance to express your concerns or issues, please by all means make sure you email our council office or call our council office so we can make sure your voice is heard. So my office number is 410-887-0896. And our council email is council, then the number 1 at baltimorecountymd.gov. If you live in the central part of our district, which represents areas such as Catonsville, you can ask for Kathy Ingers. If you live more in the southern part of our district, including Lansdowne and Arbutus and Hillthorpe, and many other areas, you could ask for Brian Morse. And then, of course, if you live in the northern part of our district, which includes areas like Woodlawn and Westview Park and Woodbridge Valley, you can ask for my legislative aide, Margaret Stokes. I just wanted to be brief tonight. I know we have a full agenda. I did want to encourage everyone to keep the faith. Obviously, our global scientists around the whole world are working very hard day and night on an antiviral that will hopefully help mitigate this terrible virus. And eventually we'll see a vaccine that will help defeat it. It just takes time, and so it's going to take some patience and all of us working together. I did want to remind everybody to please socially distance. It's very important. If you see big groups of people playing in the parks or playing football or other things, please call the police, because we just can't have that right now, because that will help keep this virus going. The sooner we kill off this virus, the quicker we all can get back to recovery, which of course all of us want to do. The priorities we all share are still first and foremost as we work through a very challenging budget. But priorities such as new Lansdowne High School, we're still have most of our priorities very much on track. But obviously we do have some very pressing needs and priorities given this virus and our essential services. But if you ever can think about local government, and what local government brings to the table, well, certainly today is exactly what we need and what we're seeing. I mean, think about our police and our firefighters, our first responders. These are people in public works going out and doing what they need to do. And obviously, outside of government, we have our nurses and our doctors and our first responders, but even people that don't always get the credit I feel grateful for, such as our people that pick up the trash, every day. How grateful are we that our trash and our recycling is picked up? And it definitely brings home what local government's about. It truly is about service and about helping people. And I did want to close by thanking the county executive and thanking his administration. I think they've been exceptional. They have been absolutely 100% engaged with the county council and keeping us up to date on what's going on. So thank you, County Executive Olszewski. And let's all pull together and let's get through this virus. And I do look forward to eventually, when the virus is fading, where we can do these things in person again. So please stay safe, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilman Quirk. Appreciate your partnership as well. Last but certainly not least is Councilman David Marks.
Thank you very much. Mr. County Executive, let me begin by acknowledging you for your leadership over the past month. The three of us on this call tonight are the longest serving members of the council, and I think I can speak for all of us in saying that your collaborative spirit has been absolutely essential. Thank you also to all those assisting in this emergency in both the public and private sectors. Working together, we have made great progress in the 5th District over the past decade. 8 new parks, school construction projects from Towson to Kingsville, resurfacing of major corridors such as Joppa Road and Bosley Avenue, and the revitalization of downtown Towson. This, however, will be a budget cycle different than any other in my 9 years on the council. We will need to focus on the fundamentals of local government, including public safety, education, transportation and infrastructure, and caring for our most vulnerable citizens. The construction of new schools to reduce overcrowding remains a central mission for me. To the extent that we deviate from these priorities, they must be smart investments that lay the foundation for our work after this recession is over. Creativity will be critical over the next few years. With some of these projects, such as the development of Ridgely Manor Park in Loch Raven and Adelaide Bentley Park in Towson, we were creative and worked with local nonprofits such as Neighborspace of Baltimore County. That imaginative spirit and sense of partnership will be critical now more than ever. In the coming weeks, should you need to reach me or my staff, email council5@baltimorecountymd.gov or call 410-887-3384. We will do whatever we can to assist you. One thing is certain, we all will emerge from this crisis safe, healthy, and ready to continue that spirit of progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. I think that's very well said. And I'll just reiterate again how much I appreciate the collaborative work I also have gotten from the County Council. It's been truly collaborative and productive relationship. And I think it's serving the residents of Baltimore County well, particularly in this time of crisis. So thanks again for everyone who's been in tonight. The floor is now yours, and we welcome your input. Just a reminder to listeners and attendees that there are 2 ways to submit questions. You can both email townhall@baltimorecountymd.gov, or if you're watching in our YouTube stream, you can submit questions via the comments section. With that, we have a few questions that were submitted in advance, so we'll turn to those first. And in the meantime, if you have a desire to contact our office on the executive side, it's the D1, D5, and D6 outreach. And council members shared some contact with their, again, emails for council members are up there as well. We'll start first with a question from Kitty and Councilman Quirk. This is a D1 question you may also want to weigh in on. Kitty writes, good evening, Johnny and Tom and the rest of the panel. First, I want to thank Tom for the wonderful work that's been done in Ingleside and Catonsville Manor. But she also writes about some of the community flooding problems and was asking about the possibility of getting a new drainage system with curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. Kitty, I appreciate your leadership in the community. I don't know that our Public Works Director is in, but certainly these were one of the many projects we were originally hoping to take a look at when we were early in the budget cycle. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, we've had to write down revenue significantly, so our ability to take on particularly large projects will be constrained, at least in the short term. But we certainly know the need. I know the Councilman's been a big advocate for that community, and Councilman, if you wanted to add, I'd give you an opportunity to share as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. County Executive. Kitty, it's good. I appreciate you being on the call tonight, and I appreciate your work out in the community. And we definitely hear your concerns. Rest assured, I'll be working with the county executive as well as his team, looking at some of these flooding issues. Unfortunately, we're all very familiar with, the 2 floods that old Ellicott City had, and obviously some of that was damage happened also in other areas, including Catonsville and Oella and different neighborhoods for sure. And we'll be looking very carefully at the resources that we have and trying to allocate them as efficiently and carefully as we can, given the extreme budget at the moment. But eventually this extreme time will pass, and we'll definitely be looking at these into the future to make sure we get them done. So I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you, Councilman. We also have a couple of education questions that came in early through the town hall at BaltimoreCountyMD.gov email address. One came in from Carolyn, who writes that since our economy is unknown, might the funding for Kerwin Commission recommendations be canceled? Now, that's a good question. Kerwin Commission was obviously some landmark education legislation and funding that was passed this year in the General Assembly. Unfortunately, I don't know the long-term prospects of the Kerwin Commission's the legislation, but that's certainly something that we will be taking up with our state partners in the House and Senate in the Maryland General Assembly in the weeks and months and years ahead. There were also questions from Kathleen regarding school construction funding, both a general question about whether or not the county is still on track for school construction projects, but also for the status of renovating or replacing Delaney High School. So Councilman Marks may want to weigh in on this as well. I can tell you that we were lucky enough that we partnered with our state legislators to pass the Built to Learn Act, which equipped Baltimore County with over $400 million of additional state construction dollars. Working with the council, we had the foresight to actually pre-fund the balance of Schools for Our Future. And unfortunately, that did not include the high schools, but what it did is it equipped us to be able to tackle those high school challenges. The larger question about Built to Learn is that the capital dollars were actually being funded by the casino revenues in the lockbox. So with the casinos closed in response to COVID, there's some question as to when that money will start flowing and if that delays the program at all, given the closures of our casinos. I can tell you that everything we can do, I remain fully committed to moving forward on all of our high school needs. I want to thank the council for actually recently approving a 10-year plan that for both our high schools as well as the balance of our elementary and middle schools will have a 10-year plan that's being developed for both overcrowding, infrastructure, capacity, and that will help guide our conversations moving forward. Currently, we've invested $500,000 in both Towson High School and Delaney High School this year to do the phase 1 study that would help justify a replacement school over a renovation. I will say also, working with the council, we already put forward the fundings to ensure that every single high school, including Delaney, is air conditioned by next year. So we are moving forward in a lot of important school construction efforts. And I thank you for that question. Councilman Marks, I didn't know if you wanted to chime in at all about Delaney specifically or any of the council members about school construction.
I want to thank the county executive for his leadership. This is an example of that partnership that we absolutely need to get things done. I think there's a little bit of concern about the closure of the casinos and what that may do, but the bottom line is, Build to Learn will infuse our treasury with the money that will help get these schools done. The other important point in this is that when you're in an economic decline, these are the type of projects you want to be building. infrastructure projects, school projects that employ people, and again set the foundation for future growth once we're out of this recession. This is a very important priority for, I know all three of us on this call. Councilwoman Bevins, thank you for your help with the Nottingham schools. And I'm very happy that with this county executive's work and the support of our state legislators, these projects will be advancing.
Thanks, Councilman. We have a question also from Nicole about A&E districts. Thank you in the county's work to designate Catonsville as an arts and entertainment district. Do you foresee being able to extend that designation into Arbutus, and will other parts of the county benefit from these special kinds of designation? The short answer is yes. We hope to have lots more designations across Baltimore County. We are actively working with Reisterstown, for example, to make them our second Main Street designation in the county. We were thrilled that Catonsville became our first A&E district in Baltimore County, and I'll let Councilman Quirk weigh in on that if you'd like. As it relates to Arbutus, one of the other things that we try to do is we're working with our anchor institutions to better leverage the Towson universities and the UMBCs of the world to better activate and have investment in communities like Arbutus. So I'm a big believer in what UMBC can be for Arbutus in the years ahead, and we're going to do that in addition to pursuing additional designations in the years ahead.
And I would just add, we are working very closely with the county executive's office, looking at areas such as Arbutus and Lansdowne, looking at different designation possibilities, including considering sustainable community, or looking at other things we can do, working together with the county exec to continue to help the revitalization of these critically important towns and keep the revitalization going.
Thank you, Councilman. We had a question that came in since we started from Naisha. And this is a question about mobile crisis units. She writes that currently the county operates mobile crisis units on each side of the county, the east side and the west side. And this might be a question where I'm going to ask Chief Hyatt to weigh in. She was wondering if she could tell us a bit about the budget. And Chief Hyatt, if you also want to just talk about the general operations of the mobile crisis unit in general in response to Aisha's question.
Sure, sir. I'm happy to discuss the actual function of mobile crisis. They respond in conjunction with our police officers when we get a call for an individual who is experiencing a behavioral crisis. So that is something that somebody who is skilled in that field travels directly with our police officer to provide assistance. And, it's certainly a best practice, a proven tool to assist in de-escalating and making sure that we are able to provide the necessary services to an individual who's in crisis.
Thank you, Chief. And while you're still on, I had two District 1 specific questions regarding the police department. So I'll turn to you first, and then if Councilman Quirk wants to add as well. There's questions about what efforts are being made to keep the community safe in Lansdowne, Baltimore Highlands, and Riverview communities. And then also there was a question about the police precinct 1, planning and development surrounding the location. If we have a sense of where the new station might be located, will the precinct operate in the current situation while the new station is being built? Before you go, Chief, I'll just say we are fully committed to completing the job. We put initial planning dollars in last year's budget to start the Wilkins replacement. We will continue to make sure we move forward on that. I think we are still in some conversations about the exact design and location. I think there are some alternatives that might work better for the police department. But I would defer to the Chief to the questions about the precinct, as well as any steps we're taking for the Lansdowne, Baltimore Highlands, and Riverview communities. And Chief, whatever you don't say about the public safety plan, I'm happy to chime in on as well.
Absolutely, sir. And first I'll say in regards to the precinct that when there is construction or movement to a new precinct, the public is not going to see or experience any type of drop in police services. So that is absolutely not something that we have concerns about. We will have a thoughtful plan in place to ensure that we have continuity of operations. As for some of the challenges in Precinct 1, we are certainly aware of them. We work very closely. There's an excellent captain that is there, and we work very closely with him along with our area major all the way up through the chief of patrol to make sure that we're able to provide the focus that we need to that area. Additionally, outside of our operations resources, our CIB, which is our investigative bureau, plays a strong role in a lot of the work that's getting done in some of those areas that you mentioned. One of the things that we did multiple months ago was break Baltimore County into 3 areas instead of 2 in terms of oversight for our area majors. So now we have 3 area majors instead of 2, which really does provide the ability to have more focus on some of the crime and some of the other challenges that are going on in different areas. And I can tell you, from my perspective, that I've definitely been pleased with the enhanced focus that these area commanders have been able to have in areas.
Thanks, Chief. And I'll just add before if Councilman Quirk has anything he wants to add, since it's his district. In addition to the changes that the Chief has already outlined, 2 other areas that we unveiled as part of our public safety plan, and as Councilman Marks mentioned earlier, safety and the security of our communities will be one of our priorities that we retain. Supporting Chief Hyatt in having an opportunity to have focused intervention in all communities as they need them, but also the development of real-time crime centers so that we're better using data to drive our decision-making as we fight crime across Baltimore County and the region.
And thank you, Mr. Executive, and our wonderful Chief of Police. We're really lucky in this area. We have an exceptional captain. Captain Latshaw and I communicate, it seems like sometimes daily now, talking about the issues and the problems that we face, the challenges that we have to meet head on. And, I'm honestly incredibly grateful for the job the police do every single day, really putting their lives on the line to really protect and preserve the quality of life that we all hold dear. I will tell you there was some significant police work and some good wins, especially in Lansdowne. There were several bad actors that were arrested and some crimes that were cleared recently that I feel great about. But also the Wilkins Police Precinct, it's high up on the list, not only for me, but also for our county executive. We both recognize that that's a real priority and it's very important. And then in closing, I did want to encourage everyone to join up with the Wilkins Police and Community Relations Organization. It's a wonderful organization headed by Otis Collins, who does great work and also has a great board and great officers. So the way that the community can engage and work together with the police can't do this alone. We need your help. We need your input. We need your feedback. So please, if you can, come out and join the Wilkins Police Community Relations Organization and be part of making sure we keep our community strong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. I want to get to a question from Caitlin, who came in before we started, and then we'll get to some more live questions from the Overley Community Association. So, Councilwoman Bevins, if you want to chime in on this one. Caitlin asks, it's a SHA question. The Overley Community Association asks for support from Baltimore County for SHA improvements to Bel Air Road. Would you support improvements in the streetscape? I will tell you that unequivocally, I am happy to support the community's efforts, whatever we can do, whether it's a letter or other supports in terms of encouraging the state to make that investment. I remember going to an association meeting last year where this was a topic. And obviously it's a state road, so it would be state funded, but in terms of letters of support and to have our voice behind you, I think the councilwoman might agree, but I'll let her say so.
Absolutely, County Executive. I would very much appreciate that. I'm a huge supporter of the Overley community, and they work diligently every day to their theme is Overley Rocks, and they certainly do. They have great leaders there, and anything that we can do. At one time, the state threw several $1 million into a plan for Blair Road and then canceled the project. So that money was wasted. So we definitely want to see that come back again, and hope, of course, we'll have the support of Senator Klossmeyer, Delegate Harry Bundari, Delegate Boltler, and Delegate Jackson as well. So let's get her done over there in Overley, and there's some exciting things happening there, and I'm happy to support whatever they need. And thank you for your support.
Thanks, Councilwoman. And we can work on a joint letter if we haven't already done that as well.
Absolutely.
So Brian from Honeygo Village writes that he says, I can say beyond a doubt that the community is in favor of the land preservation that Councilman Marks has been discussing about the Honeygo corridor. If there's any way to include this in the budget, our entire community would be appreciative. I will just echo that the councilman has, just as Councilwoman Bevins has been a cheerleader for Overley, and Councilman Quirk has been a cheerleader for Wilkins and the communities there. I know that Councilman Marks has been talking to me about this investment as well. Councilman, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in.
Well, thank you very much. We have we're on track to complete 8 new parks in the 5th district by the end of this year. And I certainly would like to see this new park created in Perry Hall. It really dovetails with the kind of spirit of community development you have championed, and that many residents of Perry Hall want to see. Specifically, we are looking at the future of the Gerst Farm, which is one of the last big parcels in Perry Hall. We are working very hard to have as much of that developed into senior housing as possible, so as not to overwhelm our schools. But a real key part of that is to try to get a large amount of acreage devoted to a public park. I've communicated that with the county executive's office, and having that sort of parcel would absolutely be critical to making that a project that the community could really accept. So thank you, Brian, for raising that question. I am 100% behind that, and hopeful that we can have something proceed through the budget process.
And in addition to local dollars, to the extent program open space continues and has dollars flowing into Baltimore County, that might be another source. So we share the commitment to make that happen, and we look forward to working with you and the community in the year ahead. Cal is one of a few folks who have written. Before I do that, I want to acknowledge Delegate Michelle Guyton has joined us. But I think Diana and Cal have asked questions about solid waste. And while we don't have Steve Walsh on, I'll take my best crack at it. Cal asks about solid waste transfer and yard waste pickup. And Diana was asking also about yard waste and the dump. So we have, unfortunately, in response to COVID, seen a significant uptick in residential trash. Our hauler system is sort of being pushed and stretched because folks are at home, and we think that that's driving volumes going up. That's part of the reason we're asking residents to suspend yard waste until further notice. We're hoping that first, actually, the best environmental practice is to leave the clippings after you cut. It will actually sort of get absorbed into the grass, and it's actually better for the environment if you can cut the grass before it gets too tall. And then if failing that, we will pick them back up at some point. But if you have to put them in a bag, we will be doing that. In terms of the transfer station, this was a decision that, with the direction of our Department of Public Works director, and with the safety and well-being of our employees in mind, we made the decision to close off the residential drop-off for the time being. Again, we will be opening these things back up once we get through this crisis. But we appreciate those questions. Other questions that have come in, there are some questions about rec and parks, so we'll bring in Director Johnson. This one is specific about D1. Residents really like using parks in the Southwest region, such as Southwest Area and Hillcrest Park. Are there plans for improvements such as lighting activities and preventing people from accessing the park after dark? I actually don't know the answer to that question, so I'm hoping that Director Johnson might be able to weigh in.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. County Executive, for the question. Yes, we are looking at upgrading lighting at many of our facilities. We do have a list that we're actively looking at based on participation, and we're really trying to convert our lighting to LED because it's much more cost effective and better for the environment. So we will take that into consideration, and we appreciate the residents' input on that.
Very good. Thank you so much. I am working through a few more questions, so bear with us. So Roman asks whether the open budget tool will be continued and updated with the new budget. Yes, Roman. You'll be happy to know not only do we plan to continue our open budget, which tells residents how the budget is being allocated, but this year our intentions are to have as much as allowable and as technology permits and law permits to have it actually drill down to the contract level so that you can get pretty specific details on the county budget this year. So thank you for the question about our open budget process. Again, I think it's important in light of the circumstances we're facing and that we're going to have a constrained budget for at least a year, if not longer, about the public being able to know where and how our dollars are being spent. One more District 1 question, and then Councilman Quirk, if you want to weigh in on either the parts or this one. This is a question about Catonsville Fire Station, so Chief Runn will pull you in. Catonsville Fire Station repairs and building safety concerns remain. Is there a temporary location for the fire station, or was there while repairs were made, or just generally, can you provide an update on the Catonsville Fire Station?
Good evening, one. Absolutely. And I know how concerned the community is, as we are with regards to Catonsville. We are slowly working through some issues with that fire station, and your fire company is definitely relocated within close proximity, actually at the Catonsville Community Center for seniors. So they have been so gracious to allow us to use that facility since it is actually closed down to seniors. Our firefighters have relocated to that location. Their apparatus and everything is there as we work through these issues with the fire station. Our goal is to have them up and running and back in that station as soon as possible. And thank you to our property management group because they are working very diligently with us to work through that. So if there's any other questions you have for us, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. And I will say that that fire station, among other public safety buildings and government buildings, along with rec and parks and open space, are things that we heard the needs are loud and clear. And that walking into this budget cycle, we were hoping to be able to do much more sooner. But we will continue to prioritize to try to meet the needs that are out there as best we can, working with you and working with our partners on the council. There's a question about master planning in the East County Task Force, Middle River Growth Area Roundtable. We've seen significant growth in the eastern part of the county with Greenlee, Trade Point, and other residential growth and revitalization projects. Is there a way to give greater opportunity to participate in the future? I don't know that there was a specific ask there, Councilwoman Bevins, but I know that you've been very active in a lot of the community work groups over there, and we have been very intentional about trying to make sure that we are more open in all of our planning processes and our budget processes, having these kinds of town halls and forums, as well as inviting more input from the public. So I think the short answer is yes to that question. I think it's really important to have public input in all the work that we're doing.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Between the task force and the Middle River Essex Middle River Civic Council and the Middle River Roundtable, there is total transparency and information that is shared monthly by folks involved in the projects, and also the residents and the leaders and stakeholders in those communities. And at every opportunity, anything that we can apply for from the state, we do. I know that the state is very involved in the depot, which is now known as Aviation Station, getting tax credits there. So yes, we're working diligently with all elected officials and communities to provide new opportunities, new jobs, and just a whole new vibe to Eastern Baltimore County. So thank you for that question.
Thank you very, very much. So Shay has asked a question about what commitments the county can make to safeguard funding for schools and to protect teachers. What I can commit to you, Shay, is that our employees are our most valuable resource, and I will be working with the council to do all that we can to prioritize them in these difficult times ahead. The county is not immune to the impacts of the economic downturn, just like so many of our families are facing that difficult time. So I can tell you that education, public safety, and addressing those impacted are going to be our three most important priorities as we move forward. To the extent we have additional capacity to make those investments in infrastructure, things like building our schools so that we can also help stimulate the economy as part of our investments and improvements to the communities we serve. I think this might be an opportunity to also bring in Will Anderson here because there are a lot of residents who've reached out to us with questions about how to access unemployment or how businesses might be able to access support. So, Will, do you want to chime in? I know that's sort of not specific to funding for schools and our teachers, but just generally, if there are folks out there who could use help, if you have thoughts that you want to share with those listening tonight.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thanks, County Executive Olszewski. We definitely are hearing the needs of our community and our families in two big areas. People that have lost jobs. We've lost over 13,000 from last week filed on unemployment. We expect those numbers to go up greatly. And in fact, we're encouraging people who have lost their jobs relative to COVID to file for unemployment. Now, we know patience is the watchword. Our partners at the state at labor and unemployment are really getting slammed with unemployment claims. So we have three suggestions for you. One is they've extended their hours from 7 to 6. So if you can go on off hours to apply for unemployment, please do so. The second is most people are far more successful applying for their unemployment online than using the phone banks, which are really overrun. And then the third thing is if you get stuck and you just can't get through their system, call our team. Our team at Baltimore County is working with the state to get people through the unemployment, and that is at 410-887-8000. You can also find us through our website, baltimorecountybusiness.com. And then on the business side, we know that there has definitely been a slow rollout of the fiscal stimulus, and our small businesses are very anxious about it. Now, we know in just the past couple of days, $50 million in what's called the Paycheck Protection Program loans have gone out. There have been almost 180,000 loans made across the country, but we also know many people are not getting in. So there's two bits of advice there. Is one is try to work with your banker, and two, we are seeing people submit their applications for those loans so fast because they're so desperate that there's an inaccuracy. And if there's an inaccuracy, I can tell you the banks and the SBA are moving those off the pile. So we know folks are anxious. Our team can help in advising on that, as well as your accountant and your bank. But please be careful to apply for those loans accurately. We are hoping that there will be another stimulus package that will add to this to fill what we know is going to be an expired fund. And these are really the two big questions that everyone's asking us about unemployment and small business. And I'll just say the one last thing, Mr. County Executive, is about independent workers. So part-time workers, gig workers, they do count. You can file for unemployment at the state. Now, some of the systems at the state are kicking out some of the old language that you have to apply for jobs. That has been waived. So if you have any confusion about being an independent worker applying for unemployment, give us a call and our team will help walk you through it.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate that update. Another question we had relative to transportation. This is, at least to start, it was a District 5 project. I heard about the Towson Circulator Project. What's the cost of this project? Is it going to be accessible for the disabled and for senior citizens from retirement communities? I don't have the exact costs in front of me, but we will have our transportation teams follow up. I can tell you that we received a very significant federal grant, I believe over $1.6 million federal grant to help with the capital costs stand that up. We are currently in the process of engaging the community, route optimization, and we are very much looking at ways to make sure that people who are disabled and seniors and in retirement communities to have access to that service. It's something that Councilman Marks has been a big advocate of for a long time, and certainly going to give him an opportunity to weigh in as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's an excellent question. Downtown Towson is a place where you really just can't build more roads. You have to look at ways to get people around using the current system. And I've always believed that includes more biking, more pedestrian improvements, and certainly a circulator. I've been a proponent of this since my election to the council, and there was opposition at times, but I'm thankful that the county executive did put money in the budget to try to make this a reality. I do know we were looking at some extensive community outreach, and hopefully that will continue. And I do want to thank our partners at the state and particularly the federal level for that funding, which will help this project to advance.
Thank you very much. I want to acknowledge the feedback of Peter, also from Idlewild, who reiterated the request for what he acknowledges as an expensive flood mitigation project, but duly noted, it is acknowledged. Also a request that the county fund the repaving of Litchfield Road and Parkway Road. So they apparently were not repaved in recent years, so we will make sure that that is also noted as part of our road paving process and part of our road consideration when we finalize the budget in terms of our resources there. One of the things I was proud of working with the council on this year is that this year's budget included record funding for road resurfacing. Unfortunately, there was such a large backlog that there were a lot of projects that are very much deserving that we just haven't had a chance to get to. But that backlog is smaller because of the partnership we had in passing a large road resurfacing budget this year. This one is also for Roslyn, and it's in Councilman Marks' district. Can you provide an update on the Rattleball project? So Director Johnson, the floor is yours. If you have an update on that project, you can provide.
Yes, thank you so much. I will be following up with an update as far as that's concerned on the Rattleball project, and we can certainly get you that information, Mr. County Exec, to be posted on the website and to share for everyone to have an update on.
And if I could just follow up, that is a terrific project. That will be situated in the most populated part of Towson. It'll be the first new park in Eastern Towson, that part of Eastern Towson since Overlook Park in the early 1990s. And it is a good example of partnership. The Green Towson Alliance, particularly Carol Newell and her volunteers, have done a terrific job planning that park, but also we've had significant support from the state. Former Senator Broshin, current State Senator Chris West, former Delegate Steve Lafferty, and now Delegate Kathy Forbes. And we're at the very tail end of that project. So hopefully we can get that finished very soon.
Yes, that is correct. And that project is about to go to bid. So more to come on that.
Very good. We like that. There was a question from Nicole as well about DPW, and it was about when will the county be recycling glass again. I can assure you I've got my team working day and night to find a solution to that, and we hope to have an answer shortly. It's a priority of mine to find an answer for glass recycling. I was surprised myself to learn that the county wasn't doing it and committed to finding a solution. So we will keep you updated on that as that becomes resolved. There was also a question in here about tourism. And so we'll also let Will maybe tap in on that and A&E generally. For years, Baltimore County hasn't tapped into its tourism potential. Moving forward, how is the county going to do that? I think that I'll let Will speak to some of the dedicated resources we put into tourism this year. We actually had some great plans before COVID came along to support tourism activity this spring into summer. But we're hoping that with a retooled tourism team, including a new leader in economic and development, we'll be raring to go post-COVID to really help stimulate that part of our economy again and get things growing and moving. Will?
Thanks, Mr. County Executive. Just to put some detail to that, the County Executive put new monies into tourism in this fiscal year over and above the target that was set of the 8% by the County Council. And then going into this year, we're looking at a follow-on of several of our key assets. Now, this is all pre-COVID, but on the water, horse country, craft, we have a huge sports tourism industry. And while we see in COVID, this is one of the industries that first takes a major punch. Our hotels may have their revenues down to something like 25% this year, and our restaurants and the amenities that go with them are all suffering. We see a shift in our strategy that's going to echo what's going to happen across the country, and that will be how tourism can be a more drivable event where people may be more inclined to stay within a few hours drive. We're actually in a very good position there. We have great assets that we haven't been marketing until this year, really. So we're optimistic. It is going to take this industry some time to bounce back, particularly our hoteliers, but we do have an aggressive plan coming out. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. A couple of questions that came up during this exchange. One came from Sharon about asking if there will be additional town halls after the budget message. We do the town halls, Sharon, before to help inform the delivery of the budget, which will be presented to the County Council, these 3 members and the other 4 next Tuesday, a week from today. And that's when we deploy our open budget process so that not so much input in, but input out so that residents can actually go in and drill in and see how the dollars are being spent after the budget message is delivered and the council finally adopts the budget in May. There was also a question from Frida in Valley Brook about if the adjusted budget will affect road resurfacing for fiscal 21. What I can tell you is that along with many other places will be things we have to look at in terms of bringing back. It is a capital investment. It does keep people working. It is a priority of our communities, but we have to make sure first and foremost that we have the core of our government services intact, and then we can see if there are ways to go beyond. I'm fully committed to finding more ways to be efficient and innovative to save money so that we can do additional things, but there is a chance that might be impacted. Kathy asked about how much of her $100 donation to the COVID fund will go to first responders. And Kathy, I'm happy to say if you want every penny of that donation, thank you for making it to go to our first responders. We can be sure to do that. If you want to just follow up with your contact information, we will have someone reach out to you to flag that money that you contributed, and we will make sure that every penny you donated goes to our first responders. For anyone else who is interested in supporting our COVID-19 response fund, which does support PPE for first responders, it does help us to buy food for those of us who are less fortunate in the response to this crisis. You can give and you can learn more about it by visiting www.bcf.org/emergency response fund. Again, that's www.bcf.org/emergency response fund. There was a question submitted to the District 6 Outreach Coordinator. Can you give an update on the Code Enforcement Work Group? The final meeting, which is virtual, is set for this Thursday, April 9th, and we will have details on the county website. Just generally, I'll say that we've heard a lot about the need to do more in code enforcement, both in terms of resources, but also in terms of policies, and we hope to have a robust set of recommendations coming out from the work group after next week. Councilwoman Bevins, there was a question about whether or not you could provide any updates on the Spiegel property. I don't know if you or Will have any ideas or thoughts that you can share at this point, but I wanted to just put it out there since it was the question was raised.
Certainly, I can speak to that. So what has happened at one point, there was going to be the Mike Carruthers Fields at that location. The Spiegel property was the last property to be purchased to allow that project to go through. Since then, unfortunately, the financing fell through for that project, and that project is now being turned into housing. It had complete support from the Essex Middle River Civic Council and the Bird River Road Community Association. The leader of that organization also supported it. There will be 82 homes there now, but there will also be a park, and there will be fields. I think one ball diamond and a park as well. And it's probably going to be a shovel in the ground in about 2 years. And we're looking forward to it. This is the extension of Campbell Boulevard, and it'll be right next to the Windlass Preserves. So it's going to be a great project, although we wanted to have open space and we were hoping for those fields, but it just didn't work out. But the good news is Aviation Station is going to have all the indoor fields and outdoor fields and great programs there, both private and public. So that's exciting news.
Thanks, Councilwoman. And then Councilman Quirk, there was a question about if you had an update on the Patapsco Glen community development. I don't know if you had any insights or anything you wanted to share on that project.
That's still under review, and we will have more details forthcoming.
While you're still on, Councilman Quirk, I know that we share a passionate commitment and dedication for the Woodlawn Senior Center. There was a concern about the size of the facilities and how popular the space is. I think we're probably going to be in agreement that, we've heard these concerns and desires loud and clear from the Woodlawn Senior Center community. And again, recognizing that we're in tight fiscal times, we want to try to do all we can to at least move some feasibility or some investigation forward and try to provide at least some limited relief as best we can to those folks.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Executive. We obviously, you and I have had multiple conversations, as well as Councilman Julian Jones, and has been a very strong advocate. And Councilman Jones and I work hand in hand in that community, and we both very much share the same priorities, recognizing, of course, what's realistic and in what time frame given this incredible challenge that we face with COVID, and of course with our income and property taxes under pressure. But definitely that remains a top priority, I think, not only for myself, but obviously with the county executive and also with Councilman Jones. So I appreciate that.
And I'll just echo, Councilman Jones has been a great partner as well with you on that project. I want to thank both he and Councilman Patoka again for joining tonight, listening in. I did want to also share with those listening who have questions about yard pickup or glass recycling. If you want to talk to the department directly, the number there is 410-887-3300. So if you have any solid waste or public works questions, the department's number is 410-887-3300. I also just want to recognize that there was a very thoughtful letter that was sent in advance from the Green Towson Alliance regarding many of their environmental priorities and requested initiatives. So just want to acknowledge those, and certainly Councilman Marks, if you want to weigh in, but it's everything from bike and ped safety plan to expand alternatives, partnering with community and environmental organizations to implement tree plantings, invasive removal, stream cleanups, and fund green infrastructure projects to manage stormwater better. So I want to just publicly acknowledge the leadership of the Green Towson Alliance for their work, for their letter, and for their partnership now and in the years ahead.
And I will echo those comments. The Green Towson Alliance is, quite frankly, one of the most engaged and sophisticated organizations that I've ever dealt with. They were critical for the purchase of Radeball Park, as well as the two other parks that have been finished in Towson. They were very helpful to me with things like bike parking requirements, pushing for the circulator. And we've had some minor projects that have advanced. I do want to thank the county executive for some tree planting along Goucher Boulevard and Bosley Avenue. And I know that he and I both share a commitment to making sure that the development we see in downtown Towson is really a role model in the future in terms of sustainability.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. We have a few more questions remaining. I'll run through them, but just again, if anyone who has not had a chance to ask a question would like to get a question in, you can email townhall@baltimorecountymd.gov. Again, townhall@baltimorecountymd.gov, or you can submit questions in the YouTube chat feature, and we will try to get to them tonight. Corey asks a question about rec and parks. So Rosalind, maybe you can jump in again here too. This is a bit on the fly. While buildings and new indoor spaces for rec and parks is going to be nearly impossible right now, is there a possibility to utilize and create short-term rental agreements with vacant buildings across the county to create temporary facilities for rec activities? And before Rosalind says anything, I'll just say she has brought a lot of innovative ideas about how to make rec more accessible to more of our residents. So I think anything that will accomplish that feat, she will be open to. But I'll let Director Johnson chime in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. CE. And to your point, we are actually looking at all of our recreation programs that we provide throughout the county. We are not quite sure right now. We do provide equitable access to everyone and the same level of recreation programs. So we will be exploring innovative ideas where we see there are gaps in recreation program services. We'll be working with all of our rec councils to provide standards and to come up with standards for recreation programs. So that's an excellent question that Corey posed. And right now, during the COVID pandemic, our staff is getting ready to start on strategic planning as well, so that we can better assess our recreational activities throughout the entire county.
Thank you very much. I do want to recognize that Tamara and Susan both had a question about education. One is about teaching the classes, and one is about laptops and having multiple children at home using the laptops. I cannot specifically answer since BCPS is an independent agency outside of Baltimore County, but we will make sure, Tamara and Susan, that we make sure you are connected with the county school system to get an answer to that question. The last question from Nicole, which I think we've covered the rest of them, relates about COVID and the budget, and I hope we actually got through most of that tonight for you. With COVID-19 causing problems with the economy, will that change what the upcoming budget looks like? If so, what changes should we expect to see? I hope that both from the council members and for myself, you know that we absolutely will see an impact. There are a lot of projects that we were hoping to move forward on this year that we simply won't be able to, including a lot of my priorities. I want to make sure that we prioritize first and foremost, again, our employees and the delivery of our most essential services in the year ahead. Dr. Branch, I know we haven't called on you on any health-specific question, but I want to just give you a minute or two to maybe do a quick COVID update to let folks know where we are in our response and any reminders you want to give to them as we head towards wrapping tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CE, and good evening to everyone. If I can just generally talk about COVID-19, I just want to remind everyone that this is a brand new virus. And because it's a new virus, no one in the community has immunity. And so we have no medications to treat the virus, and there's no vaccines to prevent it. So the best thing that we can actually do for COVID is to slow it down. We can't stop it, but we can slow it down. And we want to slow it down because we don't want to overwhelm the medical system. And how can we do that? We've been talking about it for weeks now, and that is social distancing. That is staying 6 feet apart. That is staying at home when we can. Once we do that, and as we do that, it's going to decrease the amount of people who are getting it at the same time. But we're not going to be able to turn this switch off. It's not an off and on switch. For now, several weeks and months to come, we're going to continue to have the coronavirus within our society. It is our hope that we will continue doing more research, and then ultimately We'll have some medications to treat it, and also we'll have some vaccines to prevent it. At this particular time, we are working extraordinarily hard in the surveillance of this and monitoring the COVID in our jurisdictions. We're working very, very, very closely with the hospitals to ensure that when there is a surge of this particular disease, that we're going to be ready to be able to handle it for our jurisdiction. In the meantime, I can just say to everyone, please, please, please wash your hands, don't touch your face, and remember social distancing. If anyone has any questions regarding the COVID for Baltimore County, they can always call our hotline at 410-887-3816. That's 410-887-3816. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also recognize that I've been informed that Councilman Crandall has also joined us. So we've got a pretty good showing from our county council tonight. I want to thank my partners of the council for all showing. Councilman Crandall, thank you for also joining tonight. Last question I have before we turn to final comments is a question about 311 from Benjamin. Are you still planning on launching 311 for county residents? Or is that something that got cut because of the pandemic? Benjamin, the answer is yes. We absolutely plan on launching 311 still. It got delayed because of the pandemic. It did not get cut. As part of the fiscal 20 budget, we have money where we are standing it up. In the meantime, until it's formally launched, you certainly can access many of our self-service portals like Baltimore County or Bobco Go on your mobile phones, our web form, and of course phone numbers. But that is very much still our intention to have it set up formally and officially and make it accessible to you and the residents of Baltimore County. We gave Dr. Branch a round. I want to, if there are the other directors who are on, if anyone else had anything they wanted to add before we wrap tonight, I want to give Directors Anderson and Johnson or Chiefs Hyatt and Ron an opportunity if they wanted to chime in.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. I'll just say on an optimistic note, while we understand that there's been some confusion on the federal programs, we also see hope coming. The direct payments of $1,200 to individuals could be deposited on Thursday and would be fully expended by next week. So that would be a great one to see. And I'll also point out several of our local companies have really stepped up to help in the COVID response. But BD announced recently they got approval for a 3-hour test, and they're developing about 1 million of these tests a month right here in Baltimore County out of Sparks, which is not surprising because of the caliber of scientific powerhouse they are up there. But it's a good sign to see Baltimore County contributing on a national scale here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. CE, I did see a question about food insecurity during the pandemic. So I did want to mention that currently at 50 Baltimore County public school locations, there are meals being served from 11 to 1 every day. And then at 7 PAL centers throughout the county, from 4 to 6 p.m., there are meals being served Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For example, if you pick up a meal on Monday, you will have 2 breakfasts and 2 dinners. We're trying to reduce the number of the amount of contact with the public and the public with us. So we are going to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday distribution. And I know that food insecurity is one of your top priorities during this pandemic. So this weekend, we will be purchasing 21,000 meals at 30 sites to be given out starting at 11 a.m. And if anyone has food insecurity challenges, you could call the food hotline at 410-887-2594. 410-887-2594. Or you can email food@baltimorecountymaryland.gov. Additionally, we have Recreation and Parks employees and library employees that are working with Maryland Hunger Solutions to assist residents to fill out their SNAP application. Dr. Branch may have a little bit more about the SNAP application, but for the months of April and May, everyone will receive the maximum benefits for SNAP. In addition, the state has applied for a pandemic EBT card, which means students who receive free and reduced meals at schools will have an added benefit to their parents' cards. Thank you so much, Mr. CE.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Branch again. Rosalind, thank you so much for that. I just wanted to say that if anybody wanted to apply for their SNAP benefits, otherwise known as food stamps, they can go on the computer to My DHR Maryland. That's My DHR Maryland. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. Hearing nothing from the chiefs, I want to again thank the council members, specifically those who we didn't have a chance to do an in-person town hall with. Council Chair Kathy Bevins, Councilman Tom Quirk, and Councilman David Marks, a chance to give any closing remarks. Before they do, I just want to also thank their colleagues who joined in, Councilman Izzy Patoka, Councilman Todd Crandall, and Councilman Julian Jones. Again, the council have just been great partners, as well as all the delegates and senators who represent Baltimore County. Thank you all. Council members, do you want to have any closing remarks?
I'll start. First of all, I do want to thank our county executive and the administration for your leadership. I mean, clearly these are unprecedented times, and if any of us would have thought we were going to be doing this over this WebEx system, even 2 months ago would have been fairly unbelievable. But be that as it may, I really do appreciate your open lines of communication, Mr. Executive. I appreciate our county council. We've met and talked extensively over the last weeks and months. One thing that I think is helpful for citizens is I've been getting a lot of phone calls of people saying, oh, hey, Councilman, I see people, say 15 people playing basketball, or I see 20 people playing rugby. Who do I call? And a phone number that I've been given, actually by 911, is the Baltimore County Police Incident phone line, which is 410-887-8322. We've called that number several times. I got to commend the police. They've been very responsive and very quick to get out there and try to make sure that we're all practicing good social distancing. And again, my sincere appreciation goes out to our first responders, our police and our firefighters, our first responders, and obviously our medical community that truly have been exceptional, as well as all of our public employees out there day in and day out helping the citizens. So really appreciate the partnership, and I do wish everybody good health and stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman.
And this is Councilman Marks. And I want to thank you, Mr. County Executive, for the work that you are doing. You have said it several times, from the governor on down, we are all on the same page. We are all taking this emergency very seriously. We are all communicating the same themes, and we are all appreciative to our first responders, our healthcare professionals, and all the volunteers working so hard to make sure that our population remains safe and healthy. The Baltimore County Council had a briefing yesterday from the Economic Advisory Committee that helps us determine the budget. And it's really an excellent panel. It includes a lot of experts from private industry, from banking, from retail. And their conclusion was that this is going to be a very short and vicious recession, and it's going to clearly force the county government to make some very difficult decisions in the short term. But we do have a lot of things going for us. We have, for example, institutions, our federal government, Social Security Administration, Western Baltimore County, but also our institutions of higher learning, UMBC, Stevenson University, Towson University, Goucher College. And in a lot of these communities, those kind of anchor a lot of the activity. So we do have a lot going for us. We also have a very thriving Tradeport Atlantic project. I talked to an official with them today, and he told me their business is still relatively strong. But in the short term, our priorities are clearly making sure that everyone remains safe and healthy, and also making some very important decisions to guide us through the budget process over the next year. So thank you, Mr. County Executive, for convening this. And also, I'd like to thank my colleagues for participating.
Hi, this is Councilwoman Bevins. I just want to say thank you again for this opportunity. I believe that my constituents are very anxious at this time, and they find solace in knowing that their government is still working every single day on their behalf. It's a very different time. You know, we have people working from home. Last night, for instance, we did our first county council meeting remotely, and it was very successful. And things are different, but we're still going at it. And I want people, and I have to share with you, I've seen so much caring and sharing throughout the last couple of weeks, people coming together and to take care of one another. This isn't a Republican issue or a Democratic issue. It's just a people issue. It's a virus issue right now. And it has really done my heart good to see how people do care about one another here in Baltimore County. And we certainly feel it coming from your administration. I feel it coming from our other council members, and we see it every day in our communities. So we are going to get through this. It's probably the toughest thing that we've ever seen in our lifetime, but we will get through it. And I want to thank you again for your leadership. And anything that you can do for your neighbors or anything you can do for someone in need, please do it, because I think that the next couple of weeks are going to remain the same. And I just can't wait to hug everybody. So I'll just leave it with that.
Well said, Council Chair Bevins. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing your questions and your concerns with us. We will follow up with anyone we were not able to provide an answer to. We will try to also just do a touch with people we were able to provide answers to. Your participation is so valued. This is another attempt to be open, accessible, and transparent. I truly have wonderful partners, not just in the residents of Baltimore County, but the Baltimore County Council. And as the councilwoman said, we will get through this together. So I again want to thank you for listening and participating. I want to thank members of the IT team who helped make this possible through technology, the Office of Community Engagement, and others who helped coordinate, including Sam O'Neill, my senior advisor, Pete Priscumis, and the rockstar IT team we have here today under the leadership of Rob O'Connor. And I again want to thank Anessa for doing a fantastic job tonight. Please take care of yourselves and your families in the days and weeks ahead. If there's anything we can do here in Baltimore County to serve you, let us know. You are in my prayers, Baltimore County, and we will get through this together. God bless and have a good night, everybody. Thanks again for joining.